age of consent in the United States. In my home state of California, the age of consent is 18. And I just found out recently that different states have different ages. Some are 16, some are 17, some are 18. I just always assumed in California, growing up here, that it was 18 nationally. I never had a reason to really look into the statistics of that. But I just found out a couple weeks ago that other states have 16, 17, as opposed to California's 18. And if you go back several hundred years, the age of consent at certain points was down to 10 to 12, depending on the year. But then we go further in time, and laws change, and different ideas of male and female dynamics. The original age of consent and still a lot of places in the world now being so young, like 10 to 12 or 13, or even the United States being 10 to 12 back in the day. The idea is around a woman's period is that being the age of consent, because biologically that's when she's able to have a kid. So it's how are we playing that with also what are we considering moral and immoral, and what do we agree is moral, what do we agree is immoral? But everyone's going to have their own opinion on that. But the thing is too is there's a difference between like mutual attraction and being a snake. Like it's not advisable to just go and have sex with a minor just for the sake of you wanting to get laid. But sometimes too it's just like a girl that's like 16, 17, like that's old enough to know, right? She can look at someone who's like 25, 26 and like it's biology. It's not weird. But we do have to draw the line somewhere. So because we draw the line at a certain point, that creates the legality of it. But the problem with putting legal terms and laws on human life is that it conflicts with biology. And so yes, we have to draw the line somewhere. We got to have some kind of structure. But in the current society that we have, that's kind of promoting feminism and like the college hookup culture and no consequence divorce, and the encouraging kids, okay, you got to go to high school, then you got to go to college, you got to work on your degree, got to work on your career, and then you look for the family. But by the time a woman's like 30, where she's like, okay, now I'm ready to settle down, now I'm ready to find the one, it goes against the natural biology of what would have been best for her in the long term of her life. Because when you look at it, ironically, the ages of high school and college, which society pushes on us, 14 to 22, 14 to 18 being high school, 18 to 22 being college, for a woman, that's like biologically the best time for her to be looking for like the highest value guy that she can get. So when you have go to high school, go to college, party, hook up, do whatever, work jobs, go from guy to guy, and then works her career. Now she's 30. Now she's looking for somebody. You kind of set women on a track that's not really helpful to them. Feminism is very destructive in that sense, because now you're asking this high value guy to lock down at 30 when she likely was in that mode in college, to say at like 20, oh no, I'm finding myself, no, I'm partying, no, I'm focused on my career, likely rejected that offer for marriage or that relationship or that hookup or whatever, so rejects the guy at 20, and now that he's worked up and he's successful at 30, now he just owes something. And when you bring to light these issues, then it's toxic masculinity or sexism or misogyny, and that's just not what it is. It's actually looking at the reality of things. So with the age of consent, if you have that lower age of consent, the thing with that is that guys are naturally going to look for young girls in terms of having a child. So yes, you have to draw the line somewhere. You have to have some kind of morality. It can't just be a free-for-all. But people, when you talk about concepts like this, people act like, oh, that's so creepy or that's so weird to even mention, as if the world has always just been 2021 in the United States with like the laws that they set here. Like people get into this way of thinking where the paradigm that they live is what they think the world always was. You don't have to go too far back into history where people are having kids at 10 to 12. Even other parts of the world that aren't the United States in modern day, like it's very common, because when the guy goes through puberty and when the girl has her period, she goes through puberty, they are biologically able to have a kid. So it's not weird to discuss the reality of that. Because when you're afraid to go over these topics, this is what's really common too. Like in America, we have the Super Bowl coming up. You've got like the overly conservative father that he'll have a daughter that she's like 10 to 12, maybe she just starts her period, and he's more concerned about grabbing a beer and sitting on his couch watching the football game of the Super Bowl where there's millionaires that he doesn't even know playing, but his own family, like his daughter, will be going through a pretty important time of her life, and he gets uncomfortable with the topic or he gets nervous about it. So he'll say something like, "Oh, well, ask your mom about it," instead of being a dad and like creating that space of comfortability. Like if you're going to be a dad and you have a kid, especially as a man having a daughter, like you want to create that relationship of being comfortable. Like if I ever had kids, I would definitely want my daughter to feel comfortable coming to me talking about sex or her emotions or hormones or whatever. I don't want her to learn from the internet or from another guy or from her friends or the media. I mean, she's going to do what she's going to do anyways. She's going to grow up, she's going to have her feelings and her hormones, but I would rather be a dad that explain what that is, because once she has her period, it's like, dude, she's not like your little girl, dude. Just because the legal age says 18, she's a biological adult at that point. So this whole like, oh, we're just gonna act like because the law says 18, we're just gonna act like we shouldn't be teaching certain information beforehand. So like, yeah, you have to draw the line somewhere, but I mean, some of this stuff is so ridiculous. Like here in California, with the age of consent being 18, Nevada, you can just type in age of consent by state. You can look at a map, and I think the 18, that's only like 10 states out of the 50, California being one of them. I could drive to Nevada, and it's 16. Like even out here selling tie-dye for this nonprofit that I do for work, I'm at the beaches in San Diego. I meet people from all over the world, every age, race, different religions, couples, singles, families. So certain things come up in the course of a day selling tie-dye. One time, these two girls, they bought a shirt. They drove down from, I think it was like San Clemente or LA or something. They bought shirts, and they asked about hanging out later, and they looked kind of borderline. I asked them what their age was. They said 18. I asked them again. They said, no, we're 16. And it's just like, no, we can't hang out, but we could drive to Nevada, where an imaginary border of land makes that okay. So that's just what's so ridiculous about all this. Like 16, she's old enough to like know things, right? And me as a 26-year-old man, and just myself, I'm mixed race. I have green eyes. I'm with a modeling agency in San Diego. Yeah, I get certain interactions with women. I'm not just going to sit around and like apologize for being a man or being just born without my consent. Like my parents had sex, I was born, so I have to apologize for my hormones or how I feel. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, she's 17 in 364 days. I can't tell if she's attractive until tomorrow. Like, come on. It's like, oh, but I could, if I was in Nevada, I could tell, right? Or like Texas being 17. If she's 17 in 364 days, we could just drive to Texas because it's not okay here in California. And then when she turns 18 tomorrow, now we can drive back to California where now that's okay. It's super corny to just think about it that way. And yes, like I said, we have to draw the line somewhere. There's got to be some sort of, I guess, morality. But even, I mean, that's debatable, because what one person thinks is moral, one thinks is immoral. It's the whole, like, alcohol and marijuana. Like, this one's legal, this one's illegal in certain states. But we know which one's more destructive. But we can't just get our sense of the world by legal and illegal. So, biologically, there's nothing weird about a girl that's already had her period for a guy to just be like, oh, like, she's attractive. I can see why she's attractive. Like, this is just, I mean, since the beginning of time, that's just how it's been. Like, the guy hits puberty, the girl hits puberty, they're able to have a kid. There's a certain age when you're able to have a kid, you are a biological and also a spiritual adult. But we just draw the line at a certain age, because just for, having to function in society, we do have to draw it somewhere. But in recent history, I mean, it has been like 10 to 12, and then they raise it up. Maybe it's 14, then they raise it to 16, then 17, then 18, depending on the state you live in, the part of the world you're at, time period, all of that comes into play with like where we draw that line. But how that plays in modern society when we're promoting feminism, college, the hookup culture. Oh, go get your career, go get your degree, then look for family. The whole do whatever you want kind of thing. How does that work with the intersexual dynamics between men and women? Because when you're promoting it like that, and then also promoting the marriage, and with the laws stacked against men the way they are, so you're going to set that age at 18, and so the guy, he's supposed to go to high school till 18, and then you're encouraging him to go to college through 22 because you like scare him, like, oh, if you don't go, you're going to be a loser. So he's supposed to focus on his degree, and then he's supposed to like work in his 20s, get rejected by women because they have all these options in their 20s, right? It's unlimited for them. And then at 30, he's finally worked to a certain point, and he has to just take the 30-year-old who's done partying, or she didn't want him at 20, now she wants him at 30 because she's at the end of her biological clock and he has resources, so he should just be a resource provider. But if he finds like a 17-year-old attractive and he lives in California, it's like, oh, that guy's creepy. It's like, well, I mean, what? So like, I'm supposed to just subject myself to the beta male provider, the resource provider, that I wasn't good enough years ago, but now I have money, now I'm in a circumstance, and now it's creepy to just like look at biology. And see, that's just where this is all kind of messed up. You have the biology with the laws that we have in place, with the culture that we have with promoting feminism and wait for family, wait for marriage, wait for kids kind of thing. And so all of that together kind of throws off the dynamics between men and women. So you see that a lot, where we have these issues where things just don't line up. You know, like convincing the women in their younger years that they can just be feminists and do whatever they want, they don't need men, and then they're just going to party or focus on their career. And then at 30, now they're going to settle down because feminism told them that was okay. Well, what guy is going to sign up for, oh, well, you're a good option now, and she's 30? It's like, if I'm going to be a provider, be seen as a provider, which it's not a bad thing to provide for women. Like, as a guy, if you're on point, you're working, it's a good thing to provide for women, but what are we getting in return? Like, I don't want my role to just be resource provider. So, I mean, in human history, if that age of consent was always low, like 10 to 12, and then maybe 14, and then up to 16, 17, 18, if that was always low based on the biology of when you can have a kid, now that we've pushed everything back, now it's like you got the society where the 30-year-old guy and the 30-year-old girl, like, he's like shamed into like thinking about reality. A 30-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman is just not the same. And so you got to understand how you're playing both sexes with their biology, their spirituality, and also the laws that we have in place. So it's a lot to think about.